Welcome back to the seat across from us. I'm your host, Gonzalo Palafox, and today's episode is one that means so much to me personally. Sitting across from me, even though she might be a million miles away, 3,000 to be exact, uh, she is someone who's been by my side my entire life. She is my sister. She's someone I looked up to in more ways than she probably realizes, and today she's here to share a part of her journey that has shaped her deeply. We're going to be talking about what it means to be a woman, the challenges that my sister has faced in her own identity in regards to pregnancy loss and her experience with that as well. Something so many people go through but rarely speak openly about. This story is about strength, healing, and finding power in your own voice. So, with that said, let's get into it. Hi, Cassie. Um, my sister's name is Cassandra, but she goes by Cassie. How we doing tonight?
Good.
Good, good. It's good to see you once again. I don't know if you guys know, but there was actually a re-recording to this. Don't know if I'll add that yet, but here we are doing this another round. How was your day today?
Pretty hectic, but made it through the day, and here we are.
Here we are indeed. Recording when we're finally both free is something that doesn't come easy. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start with the very first segment, and we'll just generally start with just basics. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm a mom with two little ones, and I'm married. Not a lot to say. That's just me.
Haha. Okay, what else? Who are you?
So I am Cassandra, but I like to go by Cassie. I don't know why. My mom gave me that name. I was named after a telenovela character, and honestly, don't like it. So I go by Cassie.
You know, that makes a lot of sense. My sister is the oldest of the ones that we grew up with. We also have three other siblings, including us, that we grew up with, but also a bunch more siblings that are step, half, and a whole bunch of shebang things for Latinos just generally. All right, so with that, let's start with your journey. When you think about becoming the woman that you are today, what are some early challenges or realizations that have shaped your path?
So, growing up was a very challenging thing. Um, our mom and dad split when I was about 10. And so we grew up with a stepdad and our mom. And a lot of the times, we were left with, well, me and our other brother, the oldest one, um, we were left to take care of you guys most of the time. So a lot of that time, it helped me a lot to grow into the person that I am, because even though we were taking care of you guys, it did help us to learn how to cook, clean, do all the mom stuff and all that stuff. It was a challenge, but everything that we went through as young kids and the challenges that we went through as a family has made me the woman that I am today.
And also, your college experience was a little different because of this. Is that correct?
Yes. So when I went off to college, I was a freshman. I started, I think, the first semester. When I got to the second semester, we went through a big family tragedy. Our mom got locked up, and so our dad, who is Latino, didn't know how to speak English, so he needed help. So what I did is I took my winter course semester, off, so that I could be able to help him in that area. And then after that, I got pregnant, so I wasn't able to go back our spring semester.
That is so crazy. What does being a woman mean to you today, as in April 21st, 2025? What does that mean to you?
I think being a woman to different people means a lot of different things. To me, it's maturing into who you are, because for a lot of people it could mean so many different things, and for me it would be, that it makes me who I am right now.
That's true. And was there ever a time you felt pressured to be someone you weren't?
So I feel like growing up, uh, I got pressured to grow up really fast. And in that matter, we took a responsibility of parent, like us siblings taking care of the younger siblings, getting left with them a lot of the times. And so we have that attachment that we do. And so our little sister, she was like a daughter to me because she was always with me. She was in my room. So yeah.
That's true. All right. And so that's just a little bit about your identity as a woman. Do you feel like you grew up, I mean, in college? Did you want to stay in college? I know you said you like, that you had to take care of what was happening at home. You also got pregnant eventually. Do you feel like you missed out on something?
Yes, I did want to continue college for many years. I did want to go back. I did try to do online a college when I had my firstborn, but it was a lot of taking care of him, learning how to be a mom, and managing still everything else, like being a wife, being, uh, all that things, and still doing online school. It was really tough to do.
It was, I bet it was. Is there anything you would want to change if you could go back?
I wish it would have slowed down. I wish there was things that, yes, that I could have waited. I could have waited to have a baby at a later time. And I wish I could have finished college and that my husband was able to finish college for us to actually have a degree and all that stuff before we started really early.
Thank you for that. And like another question, if you could have a baby at, let's say, a time that you wanted, what age would that be?
I think it would be after graduating college. So maybe about like 22.
So let's say you didn't get pregnant at the age of 18 and you got pregnant at the age of 22. Do you think that would have changed those 19, 20, 21, 22? I was making sure I was right. 4 years, do you think things would have changed? Isaiah could have, put pushed back. Whatever you've gone through could have been pushed back. What do you think would have happened if we pushed everything back 4 years?
I think we would have been able to have a decent place. We would be able to have a degree, have a better job, have a better stable place to be able to actually have a kid because they are very expensive and they come
Mhm.
with no manual.
No manual whatsoever. And so, like, you said that you had to grow up when you were in because you are the oldest. What did that mean for you when you had a kid at the age of 18? I mean, you said it yourself, there's no manual with a kid, but
So I did help a lot with my little sister. I did change her. I did help. Since she was a baby, she was in my room. So we had a kind of an experience, but when it is your own child, it is a lot more difficult to figure out because you cannot give that baby back. That baby is crying. That baby is
Hmm.
yours.
I mean, that's true. I know that there's another part of your story, and this one's going to be a lot more emotional. So when you're ready, Cassie, I'd love to hear how you've experienced this specific chapter of your life and how you would like to introduce this.
My story is going to be about a pregnancy loss that means a whole lot to me. But it's not about just a pregnancy loss, it's about the term that happened because there's different types of miscarriages, losses in babies.
Mm-hmm.
So the first is a miscarriage where it's like the barely the beginning of your pregnancy. And you could also have a miscarriage between like in the middle of your pregnancy, which is like up to like 12, 15 weeks. And then there's a stillborn stage where our baby is already like formed big enough and we have those babies normal. And then you have the baby death when you go full term and um and you lose a baby like in the first year, 2 years. So mine was a stillborn baby. And what I want people to get out of the story that I'm about to give is that no matter what we go through, you will get through it. And every loss is different. And so my story starts with I've had a hard time getting pregnant. After my firstborn, getting pregnant was not an easy thing for me. So, I 2 years later, I got pregnant and I lost the baby. It was a girl. I had another girl. She was my first. And then a couple years, it took me quite a bit years. So I got pregnant in 2022. And we were really surprised that we were pregnant because it took us so long. And I was not on birth control
Mm-hmm.
in either of those years, in all these years actually, that I was going through it. I actually did not go through birth control. So pregnancy was just like whenever it came, it came. We were blessed to have a baby. So in 2022, when I found out, I did not know, I didn't realize. And it's funny because around this time, Easter time, is when we actually found out. So I had a dream that I was pregnant. And I was like, is it trying to tell me something? So I was like, okay, I'll take the test. And I took the test and I took it in the night. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's positive. And and then I took one in the morning and I told my husband, I was like, oh my goodness, we're pregnant. So, we were excited. We were going through our pregnancy and everything was fine. Everything was going completely okay. And at that time, my husband was not working. My husband did get injured in 2020. He did break his lower back, so he was recovering. So we were really excited around that time because he was about to get back on his feet and everything. So it was nice. Well, because of that accident, I wasn't able to maintain our home where we were living. And so we did lose our place and we did have to leave. And so I went to my mom's with my son, and my husband went with his mom because it was closer for him to go to work than to come all this way where my mom lived. And when we got to our 20-week ultrasound, he got the time off. We went into the office. They took us into the ultrasound room. And usually the 20-week appointment, it's really long because they check all the parts, the all the body parts and the heart and everything to make sure everything's okay. And that's like the most fun part. And so I noticed that I drank something cold right before the appointment. Usually they say when you drink something cold, the baby usually moves. Well, she didn't have any movement. So I was like, okay, maybe she's just sleeping. So when they called us back into the room, um, they were doing the test. But in the middle of the test, they stopped. The girl stopped. And she said that she would be back. And in my head, a mother knows when something is going on, when something is wrong. And I was crying. I was already in tears. And I told my husband, something is wrong. Something is going on. They don't just stop in the middle and just leave and not come back. And they were trying to, because at that time we had my mom with us, and they were trying to be positive and say, no, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Well, there's the lady from like the receptionist or something comes in, and she says, oh, she's like, you guys are still here? Like confused that why we're still in the room. And we were like, oh, yes. And so they got us into one of the rooms where the doctors usually take us. And you could hear the walls were kind of like thin, so you can hear the the ultrasound lady and the doctor talking in the next room. And I could hear everything, that they have to check and all that stuff, but I was already crying. I was already like not focused on what was going on because for me, I already knew. So she does come in, my doctor does come in, and she does say, you know, the ultrasound lady can't find the heartbeat. And at that point, we cry, and I like kind of like nodded, like I already know. I already know that there's something happened. And so my husband comes and he hugs me and we're crying, and she's like, I have to double check. So I have to lay down and she checks the heartbeat and she says, there's no heartbeat. And we were sad because that weekend we were supposed to find out what the gender was because we had no idea. And so my husband asked the doctor, what are we going to have? What were we going to have? And she said a girl. And we cried more because we were so excited to be able to have a girl. After a boy, he wanted a sister. So we were hoping we would be able to have a girl. And so that hurt us the most. And so then she told me that I could take a few minutes. And she told me that the next step is because she was already gone, to keep her inside would be a bad idea for, my insides and stuff. I could get an infection. So she said, I would have to go to the hospital. And she said, you could wait a few days or you could do it today. And I told her, I was like, she's already gone. Um, just do it tonight. I just take me tonight. And we did. So after leaving the clinic, I couldn't stop crying that day. And I tried so hard to be strong, but it was like the hardest pain to go through. And then I called, my work because I did let them know that I was going to go to the hospital and everything so I could get that time off. And I did let them know what was going on. And so they gave me all the time I needed to heal and come back when I was ready. And so after that, we went to, I couldn't drive. So my husband, my mom left and I think we came in separate cars. So my mom took my car and I just went with my husband and we went to his mom's house because that's where our son was at. Well, it took me a while to get off the car. I was still crying. They tried to comfort me, but I couldn't. It was just something I wanted to like grieve. Like, I didn't want anybody bothering me. I didn't want anybody like, it's something that was like in me that I just couldn't. And so I was finally able to get off the car and go up the stairs because my mother-in-law lived on the 3rd floor. And I could hear my son inside. I could hear him running around. But when I got to the door and I tried to open it, I couldn't. I couldn't go in there with a fake smile and tell him that everything was okay. I couldn't be strong enough to tell him what was going on. So I broke down and there was times where I was just like trying to gasp for air, like if I was having panic attacks because of the pain. So my husband in all that time was trying to be strong for me, but at the same time trying to grieve on his own. And so what we did that time, they were like, go take her for a walk before she comes in. And so we did. We did go take a walk. I did cry some more because that night I was going to go to the hospital. And so I did go. Um, and then I, got my breath. And I was like, okay, I have to be strong because my son is inside. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't have the fault. So I gathered everything and then I was like, okay, I'm ready. So I go and we go inside and we just hug him. We hug him and I tried not to cry, but I still cried and because she was still inside me. She was inside, but she was gone. And so we had to wait until the time that they requested for us to go to the hospital. Um, we went in that night and I was induced. So they give you like these pills that you have to put like in your cheek and it's supposed to help you go into labor. Because I was able to have her naturally. I didn't have to go through no C-section or uh, have her like pulled out or anything. I was able to just to have her like a natural baby. And I remember going in the hospital and I was still really sad. And I had her in the morning I remember feeling this pain that I was going into labor, and I told my husband, "Oh my gosh," I was like, "It's gonna be time. We need it's coming. Go get the doctors. She's about to, we're gonna have her." And they do. They come in, and I have her around 7, and they have you in a birth room. Like, you're in the birth room just like you're gonna have a normal baby. They have like that place where the babies are, and um on the top I could see how I'm giving birth. And while I'm giving birth, I have tears in my eyes. I remember just having those tears because I know that I'm not going to hear a baby cry. I'm not going to be able to, experience like a newborn. But I'm having her naturally. And I remember she's coming out and in the sack that she's in when they're in our womb. And I remember they take her, but I'm just crying. And then they bring her, and they bring her in this like white towel, and she she was beautiful. She was a beautiful baby. She looked exactly like her big brother. She was her brother's twin. And sometimes I'm like, I wish I could have seen that. Because she would have been my twin. She would have been his twin. It would have been really cute. And so after having her, we couldn't stop crying, but we loved that we were able to have her, and they took pictures of us. I took a picture, even though it was really sad, but there were moments that I wanted to keep, that they're not for people, but they're for us, for our memories, to know that, what was going on. And the only ones that were able to be there were my mom and my mother-in-law. I think my sister-in-law was there, but we did ask for them to bring Isaiah, which is our oldest son, so that he could see his sister, so he could meet her. And he was able to come, and we told him, this is his sister. We did explain to him what was going on in the ways that he, could know, because he was young. And he did not we wanted him to be able to like carry her, or like, want to be with her, but he was more scared. He did not want like to be close. Like, he was just like, no, I don't want to carry her. And so we were like, okay. But we were able to include him and everything. It's because, he lost his sister. We lost our daughter, but he lost his sister. And I know everybody lost, their niece, their granddaughter. And it was a hard time. And I remember the doctor that we had, she was really nice. She showed us a lot of care. And she asked me if I needed more time to be in the hospital. And I told her yes. So she gave me more time to be in the hospital and be able, because after the birth, they did move us into another room where we were able to have for all ourselves and be able to have her with us. So we did name her Milagros Bendición Sanchez. So in English, that is miracle blessing, because after all these years, she was our miracle, and we're blessed. So we wanted to give her a really beautiful name, just how she was. And so when we got moved into the room, they had her in like, I didn't really like how they had her, but I mean, it still kept her with us. They had her in this like this bucket kind of like with ice underneath so that her body didn't like decompose so fast because she was small. And then we did have to figure out the funeral stuff. So the morgue did come after that time that we were able to be released. And to be honest, I did not want to let go. I could not let go of her. Every little while that I seen her, I cried. I cried so much, I think I had like a big headache because I could not. I would sleep, I would rest, but then I'd wake up and she was right next to me and I would hold her and I would just cry because I was like, oh, this is hard, you know, she's not here, she didn't make it long enough. Um, so when the morgue came, I didn't want to let go of her. I was like, I can't just give you to her. Like, I can't. But when I was finally able to, they did take her. They did tell us, you know, where she was going to go. And I was like, okay. And so I was able to leave, and leaving the hospital was a lot more harder because I was leaving without the baby. And it was like hard because I could not drive. My mother-in-law drove my car, and you know we went home, but in all that time I couldn't stop crying. There was just so much pain that I had, and even during like being at my mother-in-law's, because that's where I stayed for that time being, um I couldn't stop crying. There's just moments where I would just cry, and my husband would just be holding me, like, you know, let it out. It's okay. And while doing the you know, we had to plan her funeral, so we had to do a fundraiser to do all that, and we did a car wash. We also did like a GoFundMe page, so that helped us a lot um, for the funeral. And you know, it's crazy because for a baby so small, it's expensive. It's expensive for a funeral. But I had a choice if I wanted to cremate her and put her like in a little thing so I could like have her forever. But I decided that I didn't want that. I wanted her to rest, you know, easy, and because I feel like if you have them like that, anything can happen to it. You know, like I have, you know, I have a little one now, and like he could grab it, he could think it's like sand or like just, you know, anything can happen, and I didn't want that. So that's why we did the funeral, and we were able to pick, you know, the casket for her because it was like a tiny casket. And I was able to also pick her like some clothes, but you had to get like doll clothes because that's how tiny she was. So I was able to do that for her funeral. And so uh after the fundraiser and everything that we did, we were able to do, we finally did the funeral. And with babies that small, we weren't able to do like in a week because she was tiny, and if you would have done that, she would basically be like just decomposing because she was so fragile and stuff. So it was best that we didn't do that and we just did the funeral. We were, me, my husband, and my son were able to see her a couple of hours before the funeral. So we went into a room My son was just like, wow, it's like why are we here? And we I was able to, close it and carry her with me while we were going to the cemetery. And my mom picked the, row 7, aisle 7, something like that. So she's like in 777. So it's like a really good sign, basically. So, um, I was able to hold her. And then when we were at the funeral, it was hard to get out of the car again and having to set her down. It was just hard. Like I couldn't. I was just like, how am I able to do this? How am I able to be able to like I felt like numb. And so when I went, it was just crazy. And I got off the car. I sat her down, but I was still crying. And that day was nice because um, my husband's family were able to show a lot of support for us, which we don't see regularly. So it was really nice for them to come together and to be there for us in that hard moment. Um, I really, and so were a couple of my mother in law's coworkers and friends. They were really supportive to us. I know my family, I only had my mom, so, and my rest of the family is in Arizona, so they couldn't be there. But I remember that day, it was just like so hard to just go through it and see her and set it down. It was just I didn't want to, like I just wanted to like hold her, just be with her, and it was hard. And it was nice because the what the preacher said was nice, that she was a big blessing, that even though she didn't make it that far, she still, gathered all of us together and, all that stuff. Um, so yeah, we were even, it didn't take us that long also to get her stoned. So because of all the help that we got, we were able to also like pick a place to go get her stoned. And it was also really hard to do. It was like something that you did not want to do because your kids you shouldn't have to bury your kids before you. And so picking it out was nice, but it was so hard because I was just in a place where I was like in another place. Like there's just so much pain and so much crying that I did, because I remember I didn't even drive to where we were gonna pick the stone for her, but I put my earphones in and I was just in my own world. And when we got there, I was like, "Oh, okay, we're here." And my husband was really nice because he let it be like what I wanted. He was like, "You're the one that carried her. You're the one that had her." He's like, "You get to choose how you want it to be." He's like, and I agree. He said, "I agree with what you chose." And I told him, "Okay." And we kind of picked it together. She has like this nice color with a bear and a verse and all that stuff, and it's really nice. But yeah, that's my story with Milagros.
And the story isn't over just yet. It's only just a small fraction of what you and your immediate family had gone through in that moment. Um, so first, I want to thank you for giving us such a sensitive part of a story that could go untold, but here it is being told. It's always very appreciative of hearing another story. I will never be able to imagine what you go through because I am only a man. I cannot get pregnant. So I don't know what it's like to have lost something that is so special in that kind of way and form. So I want to thank you for one giving us that perspective because it's hard. It's hard to tell a story like that. And again, the story we're talking about a story that was 3 years ago that can still hurt up to today when talking about. Um, so I'm gonna end it here, and we're now gonna go into the next segment, which is basically the stages of grief that my sister went through for this. What she saw from our family, what she saw from her husband's family, all those things, all the lessons she learned, how this story has influenced her 3 years from now. What does it feel to tell this story now that time has passed? Does it ever get any easier? Now we're going to move on to the growth, the lessons, and where you kind of are right now. So this story is just one part of so much that we've been through, and yet you carry yourself with such strength. I wanted to ask, because I have some questions here for you. You were talking about not letting Milagros go. What made you finally decide to let her go? What was the going through your head when you were like, it's time for me to let her pass on to whatever might be next? What was going through your head at that moment?
So a lot of the times, my husband was, my backbone, my help. And he was like, it is time to let go, to let her, to have her sent away because you have to think about, she was fragile and her body couldn't be out that long. In my mind, I didn't want to, but it was something I had to do for her.
And that's very valid. I mean, that's a very valid reason. Why would you want to let go of something that means so much to you? But at a certain point, we do have to do it for someone's benefit. It doesn't matter who, but it's going to benefit someone. And then the next question that I had for you is um, actually leading us to our next part. What does it take to grieve? And what are steps to grieve? Everyone grieves in their own different ways. What was the way you grieved? How were you how did you one know that you were okay with one Milagros passing away? And what were the steps of grief that you took to better yourself and your family?
So it was a very challenging thing to go through. To get through the grieving part was one of the hardest things to go through. So I leaned on a lot on my husband, on the people around me to be able to get through. And I also just pushed it a little bit aside because, I have a little one at home. I had to get through, I had to be strong for him, even though I was hurting. And I even went back to work like a couple weeks after. And I know I wasn't ready because when I went back, I was not fully prepared to go back to work, but I pushed myself to try and get through that life. And it was like grief is different for everybody, because the grief that I went through was different for my husband. You say, that you won't know how it feels, but the men go through it a different way than us women. Us women, it's different because we're the ones that hold the baby, have the baby, but our partner, is also a part of it. And they're also losing something. So their grief is different than our grief. And my husband grieved differently than what I did. And to get through it, to be honest with you, I don't know how we did it. I don't know how we went on about it. Um, I celebrated her due date. To this day, we celebrate her birthday because, I don't know, it just helps. And in the beginning, I would visit more frequently. It would help help me uh feel like all these emotions, and I had to let it out. But it was also a very difficult time because in that time, I felt like I was going through so much, from losing our place to losing our daughter, that in that grief, I also wanted to commit suicide. And a lot of people didn't know that, but I inside, I needed help to get through it because it was something that was like eating me inside. And so I did talk to some really, well, they were close friends to me at that point. And I did talk to them about how I was feeling in those emotions, and, what I tried to do. And they helped me get through that part. But still, it took all of us to be able to help to grieve.
All right. And I mean, there are so many different ways of grieving, but how do you, I mean, one common thing that you keep saying is you were kind of leaning on someone to help with the grief, but how did you do it on your own when you were?
So, what I did was, I'm a very emotional person. So, for me, I had to let it all out. I had to cry. My main thing that I had to do was cry. And I was mad at the fact that I didn't know what was going on or why did that happen to me. But for me, in my grieving moment, it was when I was alone and I would cry, or I would go to where she was at and just sit there and wanna, have a conversation with her, but just cry.
That's very valid. I mean, again, there's so many different ways, and if something else were to happen to somebody else, you're gonna grieve it in a different way. It's gonna be different for each and every person. Now in your current moment, in your 2025 self, what have you learned from this experience? What do you think was going through your head then compared to what it is now? I guess, what have you learned about yourself through all of this?
Ah, that's difficult because grieving was a lot harder too, because after after burying her and everything, I got pregnant again. I went through the journey of being pregnant again and having my son a micro preemie. So he was born at 23 weeks, 6 days. It was really early. And so we were trying to get through what happened with her to having my son really early. And it was a lot harder that way too. I felt alone a lot of that time, but it helped me be stronger. It helped me, mature more in the woman that I am now. Because everybody goes through experiences that helps shape them. And even though we lost her, we were still blessed to have another one. It might not have been her, but we did, she sent us her baby brother.
Yeah. And I'm very happy that he is here, healthy and alive.
Yes.
Although, R.I.P. Milagros, she still is in my head all the time. Um, and so yeah, it's what advice would you give to someone going through something similar like this?
You're not alone. You're not alone. There are many women and families that go through the same thing. And when it seems like you're in the darkest moment, there is light outside the tunnel. And there are miracles and blessings that we have all around us. And even though it seems like the storm is so hard, because it really is, we do find happiness, out of it. And it may take a while, it may not, but we're all in this together.
That's very good advice for someone going not through the same thing. Yes, the same thing that you're going through, but also just grief in general. Whenever someone, something, maybe your pet passes away, maybe, I don't know, something that could happen. Always remember that there are people who are going to be there to help you. Again, I want to thank my sister a lot for giving this story. It's not an easy story to tell, and it's definitely, it gets hard, or I guess it gets easier to tell a story, but still it's not easy to just be like, "Oh, this thing happened and this is what I went through." It takes a while. So, we're going to end it there with everything we've had for the story. Now we're going to move on to something that is a little more joyful in our sibling dynamic between big sister and little brother. I don't like to be called little brother, but it is what it is. So before we close out, I just want to tell my sister I'm very proud of her. Again, hearing your story like this and knowing what you've been through, it's something that's very powerful. But let's close it out with something lighter, just for fun. A quick little either get to know my sister a little more, or and adding a more like personal touch with me and her. You're gonna look at our like video record camera and be like, yeah, they look alike. Not because of the glasses, I tell you that.
No.
But I have three questions for you, Cassie, just to get to know you, and then we'll move into the more sibling part. What's something that instantly makes you laugh?
I'm not sure. Uh, I laugh at a lot of random things.
Bruh, you gotta say what's something. Like, is it a cat meme? Is it, I don't know.
Like I could look at something and just like laugh, or uh like those videos of like cats doing dumb things, or like kids doing dumb things and they're falling, and like it's funny.
Those are- yeah, those are funny. Okay, so next question. If you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
Oh, that one's tough.
They're tough questions.
Mm,
They're meant to be tough.
probably we did it.
Hmm, that's very good. All right, and the last question that cannot be Twilight, but what's your favorite movie to cry to?
Oh, I love romance, so I don't know. Uh, that's tough. I'm I could cry over like a simple death or something. Like I said, I'm emotional.
You and me both. I cry at the end of every TV series. You'll see me crying, which is crazy.
Or like
But
I'll see like my favorite character die, and I'm like, oh no.
yes, exactly that. Um, so those are just some quick to get to know my sister kind of thing. Now we'll move into a more of sibling kind of thing. What's your favorite like sibling moment? One between the both of us, and then us as the five siblings.
Um, I like like the way that we were able to play Mario Party and just like laugh.
Yeah, because that thing is funny beating Papa.
Yeah.
He takes it
Um,
seriously like how we used to do when we were kids.
just a little less aggressive.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
For all of us, I think it would have to be our siblings' night when we're all able to be together and just don't care what anybody thinks or says.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So now it's over to me. My favorite memory of us two, it's not a memory, it's where our relationship stands as of today. I have always been a specific type of person. I've always been very mean, and in doing that, I don't know. I feel like I created bad relationships with people that were only trying to help. And so I don't know what happened. I think I was going through something, and my sister starts texting me all of a sudden. And at that moment, that is exactly what I needed, a big sister who I could just lean on when I need it instead of always being myself and figuring it out. Um, in that time, I've gone through a lot of changes myself, and me and my sister got into a better relationship than we were even 2 years ago, which is always something I'm going to appreciate very, very much. And this memory is always going to be one of my favorite memories out of the five of us, but again, it has to relate to Mario Party. But it was when we were kids. I remember us playing like bumper balls and of the Mario Party game, and it's not so much what happened after the game, it's so much what was happening during the game. It always like stays in my head, like the 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 version of that Mario Party, what exactly was going on. I don't know. It was very, very awesome to go through that. Also, having you guys is also another thing, knowing that you guys are always going to be there. Um, whatever shape, way, or form that is. I always appreciate that very much.
Yeah. I
All
was
right.
gonna say that though.
Well, you
No,
go.
I was gonna say that you were saying about like the relationship that we have because it's changed a lot. But I was like, I didn't think that was like a memory that you were saying.
Um, I was just gonna say the relationship because the memory is still there. How the memory was, but eventually it switched. So I always a big appreciative of that because our relationship definitely straightened from then.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to say for the sibling moments before we close it all off?
Uh, nope.
All
We have
right.
a lot of memories.
We do, especially the adult version of game night or sibling night.
Yes.
That's crazy. I still can't wait to do it again. So, but I want to thank everyone for joining us today. This episode reminds me of why I started this podcast to begin with. Stories like my sister's, they're raw, they're honest, and they're full of strength, and they're what people need to hear. I want to thank you guys for sitting across from me today, for being vulnerable, and for showing us that healing is possible even through the hardest pain. To everyone listening, If you've been through something similar, you're not alone. The seat across from us is always going to be open for many more stories. I will see you guys on the next episode. Good night, everyone.